Hello learners, you are welcome to another e-learning of Kaduna State Government. Today we are going to, I'm your usual economics teacher, Obi Fine is my name. This is my good friend. Whenever he sees me, he calls me, the higher the price, sometimes I will answer, I'll say the lower the quantity demand. Today he met me, he said, the higher the price, I said, the higher the quantity demand. He said, no, there is an error. I said, there is no error. He said, have I forgotten? The higher the price, I said, the higher the quantity demand. He said, is it abnormal? I say, yes. So, learners, today we are going to look at abnormal demand. Some textbooks call it abnormal, some call it regressive, some call it exceptional demand. It is exceptional because the higher the price, the lower the quantity demand. That's the normal law of demand, except, that's why we call it exceptional demand. In this demand we are going to look at today, we are going to look at regressive demand, but let us look at our outline. What we should be discussing today. One, we have to define the regressive demand. What is regressive demand? Two, we have a regressive demand at high price. We have regressive demand at low price. Some textbooks say the regressive demand at the top, some say the regressive demand at the bottom. Then we have types of the demand. Then we have effects of changes in demand on equilibrium, price and quantity. Now we move on. What is regressive demand? Regressive demand is also known as exceptional demand or abnormal demand. It is when increase in price leads to increase in the quantity of commodity purchase. Increase in price leads to an increase in the quantity of commodity purchase. Usually in normal demand, it is the higher the price, the lower the quantity demand. Because when the price goes up, what do the buyer do or the consumer do? The consumer will reduce the quantity that is about to buy or is going to buy. For example, you go to the market, you are with 200 naira, and they say that a cup of garri is 20 naira. How many do you buy? You buy 10. But when you go to the market and they say that garri is 50 naira, you have 200 naira, you have nothing to do than to buy 4 of it. So the higher the price, the lower the quantity demand. But in today's lesson, we are looking at this regressive demand. And this regressive or abnormal or exceptional demand says that the higher the price, the higher the quantity demand. Let us look at the curve or the graph representing the regressive demand at high price. Because we have regressive demand at high price and regressive demand at a low price. That is, the commodities that exhibit this regressive demand at high price, that is when the price is high. Those commodities that when the price is high, consumers buy them more when it is high than when it is low. When the price falls, instead of the consumers buying more because the price has fallen, they seem to do what? They seem to relent and buy just a little. If you look at in our curve, you find that at price 1, you see that quantity 1 was obtained. At price 2, you see quantity 2. Regressive demand, the one we have talked about is regressive demand at a high price. Just like here you see regressive demand at the top of demand curve. You say that this occurs in ostentatious or luxury goods. These luxury goods are also called ostentatious goods, such as fashionable articles like diamond rings, gold watches, and etc. And goods which exhibit or are expected to be scarce in a future. When goods are expected to be scarce in future, consumers rush to the market to do what? To buy those goods, even if the price is very high, because they know that if they don't buy it now, they may not buy it again. A good example was when the price of rice was increased, or when government said that they are closing the borders, no more importation of rice. People entered the market to make sure that they buy this imported rice. Now they can see it before it will be too late. So we say that the articles that exhibit this kind of demand are luxury goods. People like to buy goods, these luxury goods, when they are very high. Example, gold rings, gold what? Diamond rings. For example, you know our mothers, by the time they come out, they say, my husband bought this for me from Dubai. He bought this ring from America. He bought this. This is gold. This gold worth 250,000. This gold worth 300,000. That is what they want because of the price of that gold. But when the price of that gold falls, that is 15 naira, they say, no, do you think this one is a good gold? Because the price is very low. So they tend to buy more when the price is very high than when it is low. That is a luxury goods. If the price of detergent is expected to rise in future because of shortages, there will be a scramble to buy one or more in order to store them. In figure 1, that is regressive demand, the price increased from P1 to P2. The quantity demanded should have fallen to Q3, but because consumers become more interested in the articles when the prices rise, to the quantity purchased increased to Q2. Then regressive demand at the bottom. These goods that exhibit these characteristics are goods which prices are expected to fall further, or you call them inferior goods. When people see that these prices are expected to fall further, there is no need of buying those things now instead of leaving them for tomorrow, because you know that the prices are going to fall. For example, you go to the market and they say that salt is sold for 17 naira. You say, salt, 17 naira. You say, okay. And you are expecting that by next week, the price of the salt will fall further to about 30 or 40 naira. There is no need of rushing to buy that salt at 17 naira. You just buy the one you can make use of for today, while you wait for next week for the price of salt to fall. Just like inferior goods, just like matches. If you go to the market to buy matches, you know matches, you light it once and light your stove or your gas, you may not use it again until evening or next tomorrow or the likes. So there is no need to buy matches in bulk or in cartons and keep because the price is low. No. So the goods that exhibit this character of regressive demand at the bottom are goods which their prices are expected to fall further, or you say they are inferior goods. At fig 2, when the price falls from P1 to P2, instead of the quantity of Q3 being demanded, a smaller quantity of Q2 is purchased because the goods are expected to be cheaper in the future. It's not reasonable to buy it today at a higher price unless the goods are urgently needed today. That is for inferior goods. A fall in the price of inferior goods enables the consumer to save more money, which they can use to buy other luxury goods. So when the prices of inferior goods fall, because they are inferior, because they are not expected to spend more money on them, the consumer saves a lot of money or saves some money in order to spend it in buying other goods. Now let us go to types of demand. Types of demand. You listen very attentively. These types of demand, they are very important. You always see them in your exams. Very, very important. Listen attentively as we pick them one after the other and explain how they move. Some of them are interrelated, so you have to really open your ears and be very attentive. Types of demand. Number 1, we have competitive demand. Competitive demand refers to goods that are close or perfect substitutes for each other. A rise in the price of one will lead to a rise in the other substitutable commodity purchase. For example, rice and yam, Ovaltine and Bonvita, palm oil and groundnut. Let us bring it home. Like Ovaltine and Bonvita, they are perfect substitutes. They are beverages. And you either use Ovaltine or you use Bonvita. Now, a rise in the price of Ovaltine, when the price of Ovaltine rises, the consumers may not be able to afford that price. They may decide to leave that Ovaltine and go to Bonvita. After all, the price of Bonvita is cheap, and they are used for the same thing. That is why we say that a rise in the price of one will lead to the decrease in the demand of that commodity and the increase in the demand of the substitute, because they are substitutes. You either use this or that. A very good example of that is Bonvita and Ovaltine. Number 2, derived demand. Derived demand. This refers to the demand which occurs as a result for demand for other goods. What are we saying here? It is not just because you want that product. It is because there is another product you want, which these commodities are used in producing them. A rise in the quantity of goods that induce derived demand also cause a rise in the quantity of goods needed to produce it. For example, flour and sugar are needed because there is demand for bread and cake. Labor is needed to construct the highways because there is need for good road. Now let us bring it down again. When we look at flour and sugar, during Christmas and Salah, there used to be high demand of sugar and flour. Why? Because families want to make cake, they want to make chin-chin. There is no family you enter at that time that will not give you chin-chin or cake. Some will even make bread. So when the demand for flour increases, there must be the increase in demand for sugar. Why? Because two of them are used together. You cannot go and to make your chin-chin, you go and buy flour without sugar. No. Somebody cannot, your chin-chin may not have a taste, or your cake may not have a taste. So they are, flour and sugar are derived demand. They are bought because, or they are demanded because there is a demand for chin-chin, or there is demand for cake. That's why people go for sugar and flour. That is what we call derived demand. Number 3, we look at joint or complementary demand. Joint or complementary demand. Just as the name implies, joint. This is otherwise known as joint demand. It refers to goods that are related to one another. Goods that are related to one another. And the change in the demand for one leads to a change in the demand for the other in the same direction. Two of them goes to the same direction. For example, car and petrol, bread and butter, tea and milk. If the price of milk goes up, leading to a fall in the quantity demand for milk, the quantity of tea purchased will also fall, since two of them are complementary demand. They are of complementary demand. What are we saying? What we are saying here is that since milk and tea are used together, I want to take tea. What do? Go and buy milk for me. Go and buy tea for me. But if the price of milk goes very high, if the price increases, that some household may not buy it, what do? They will cancel tea. They will no longer buy tea. Even if the price of tea falls, they cannot buy it because the milk that they use in taking that tea, the price has risen very high. So that's why we say that they are joint demand and they are used together. And that is why a rise in the price of one will lead to a fall in the demand for the other. The price of milk is very high. People can no longer afford to buy milk. Then there is no need to go and buy tea because two of them are used together. Number 4, composite demand. Composite demand. Composite demand refers to commodity that serve 2 or more purposes. For example, sugar is used at home for beverages. It is also used in the industry for producing confectionaries. For those of you who may have problem with what we mean by confectionaries, when we are talking about confectionaries, we are talking about cake, we are talking about bread, we are talking about chin-chin, we are talking about meat pie, we are talking about fish pie. All these are confectionaries. So when we say sugar is used at home and it is also used in the industry, in order to produce confectionaries. At home, you may use your sugar to drink tea, you will use your sugar to take a pap, you use your sugar to make other things. Some will even want to drink garri, they will put sugar. So sugar is used at home. Everybody buys sugar at home in order to do this or that. Sugar is equally used in the industry, because industrial use of sugar entails the using it for making of cake, using it for making of bread, using it for making of donuts, using it, sugar to make a fish pie, a meat pie, and so on and so forth. So it is used at home for beverages. It is also used in the industry for producing confectionaries. So if the industrial demand for sugar increases, it will affect the quantity of sugar demanded industrially. That is, we say that if the industrial demand for sugar increases, it will affect the quantity of sugar demanded domestically. Remember, when we are talking about domestic, we are talking about home. Steel is also used for building ships, cars, houses, and bridges. An increase in the construction of houses and bridges will affect the overall quantity of steel available for use, thereby raising the price. I know you still understand what we mean by steel. When we are talking about steel, we mean that very strong iron. Some of you students, maybe you have not seen it before, but if you go to churches, big mosques, and big structures like industries, you will see very big iron that they use in supporting or pulling direct to the roof. That's what we mean by steel. That steel is what they use in building cars. They use it in building bridges. They use it in building houses. So, an increase in the construction of bridges that is when more steel is demanded for construction of bridges. Just now, you are having rural development. There are many bridges to be constructed in Kaduna State, and there are many people selling iron, or many people that are selling the steel in Kaduna State have been taken over by government. Supply this. So when they are supplying, and there is a need for steel to build some houses or some churches or mosques, it will affect it, because they will no longer have enough, because it is used for various purposes. Number 5, independent demand. Independent demand. Independent demand refers to the products which have no clear relationship with one another. Products, you do not have clear relationship with one another. For example, there is no direct link between bread and books. But when families spend larger proportion of their income on books, they will eat less bread. What do we mean here? Bread and book, you cannot eat book. They have no direct link. But when families spend a greater proportion of their income on books, how do you spend your income on books? You pay school fees. You buy uniform. You buy textbooks. You provide a lunch box for your children that are going to school. So during the new session, when you have spent too much money in paying school fees, in buying uniform for your children, buying school shoes, school sandals, and everything for them, you have spent much. It is that money that you have been saving. So the money that is left for you now to use and feed at home will reduce. That is that link between book and between book and bread. You can't eat book, you can eat bread, yes. But when you pay more of school fees, buy more of books, buy more of uniform, buy more of school shoes and sandals, then you eat less bread. When you come to the family and you want to eat rice, you may only decide to go and buy crayfish, no fish, no meat, no chicken. Because what? Because the money that you have saved in order to use in feeding at home has drastically reduced, because you have paid more of school fees. Effects of changes in demand on equilibrium price and quantity. Effects of changes in demand on equilibrium price and quantity. You may ask yourself, what's equilibrium? There's equilibrium in mathematics, there's equilibrium in economics. When we taught equilibrium, some students heard it for the very first time. What is equilibrium? Equilibrium is that point where demand and supply intersect. That point of intersection, that point where demand and supply are equal. Equilibrium price is also the market price, because it is at equilibrium. The market determines its price. Now, let us look at the effects of changes in equilibrium demand on equilibrium price and quantity. A decrease in demand while supply remains constant would cause both equilibrium price and quantity to increase. A decrease in demand while supply remains constant would cause both equilibrium price and quantity to increase. This is the graph. You see, D1 means you have D1 on your left, you have D0 at the center, you have D2 at your right. Now, you look at D1, the arrow goes from D0 to D1, that is moving to your left. Remember, I told you that a movement of the demand curve to the left signifies decrease in demand, while a movement of the demand curve to your right signifies increase in demand. So let us look at explain the diagram so far. We say that a shift in the demand curve from D0 to D1, that is decrease in demand, because the arrow is going to your left. That is decrease in demand. A shift of the demand curve to the left shows or signifies decrease in demand. It causes the equilibrium state to change from E0 to E1. This causes the equilibrium price to decrease from Q0 to Q1. On the other hand, a shift in the demand curve from D0 to D2, that is a shift of the demand curve to your right, signifying increase in demand, cause the equilibrium state to change from E0 to E2. This causes the equilibrium price to increase from 0P to 0P2, and the equilibrium quantity from 0Q0 to 0Q2. We have come to the end of the lesson today. Let us have a review of what we have done so far. We defined regressive demand. We said that regressive demand is known as exceptional demand, or you say call it abnormal demand. This is where increase in demand or increase in price leads to increase in demand, as against normal demand, which is increase in the price leads to the decrease in the quantity demand. But in this regressive demand, we say that increase in price leads to increase in quantity demand of the commodity. And we say that the products that exhibit this character of the higher the price, the higher the quantity, are luxurious goods, such as gold rings, gold watches, diamond rings. Why? Because people take pride in buying those things when their prices are high. My gold watch, how much is it? 250,000. Wristwatch, 350,000. My husband bought this ring for me from Dubai. How much? 500,000. Gold ring. So people take pride in buying those goods when their prices are high. But when they fall, maybe you have a gold ring, they say, this gold ring is 30,000. I say, no, this is not real gold. It's not real gold. Why? Because the price has dropped. They take pride in buying them when the prices are high than when it falls. That is regressive demand at a high price or at the top. Then we have another one we say called the regressive demand at low price, or regressive demand at the bottom. The commodities that exhibit that characteristics are inferior goods, or goods that their prices are expected to fall further. For example, matches, and so on and so forth. We talked about types of demand. We mentioned competitive demand, that refers to goods that are close substitutes for each other, like Ovaltine and Bonvita. When you say that when the price of Ovaltine goes up, there will be less demand for Ovaltine and there will be increase in demand for Bonvita. and so on and so forth. Then let us look at our assignment. Assignment 1, define regressive demand. That is 1A, define regressive demand. B, give one example each of regressive demand at high price and regressive demand at low price. Number 2, identify 5 types of demand. Number 3, mention the effects of change in demand on equilibrium, price, and quantity. I repeat again. Define regressive demand, 1A. B, give one example each of regressive demand at high price and regressive demand at low price. 2, identify 5 types of demand. 3, mention the effects of change in demand on equilibrium, price, and quantity. My name remains Obi Ifeanyi. Do your assignment. You can send it through a message or through WhatsApp to my number 080-350-328-31. I repeat, 080-350-328-31. Stay home, stay safe, keep learning. COVID-19 is real. Thank you very much.